Like watching this movie, I kept thinking about Boy Meets World. I couldn't help it because the title just reminds me of that movie. That would have been an amazing sequel series. Chat, from Boy Meets World, now Boy Kills World. Holy shit.
When this boy meets world, wandering down this road that we call life is what we're doing.
Let's go ahead and move on to my review for Boy Kills World. Now, as I've said many times before, and we'll probably keep saying for the foreseeable future for years to come, we are very much living in the era of John Wick. When that first film released, all the way back in 2014, I want to say, 10 years ago, as of this specific review, we would be getting just so many action films emulating the style, the world, and the characters of that movie, and its sequels and soon-to-be spinoffs. You know, it was the same for movies emulating Die Hard, for example, in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. The same for movies emulating The Matrix throughout the 2000s. You know, that same formula, just, different influences. And this has yielded positive, mixed, and negative results. For every Sisu or nobody, we get a Hotel Artemis or Day Shift. Movies people have honestly forgotten. But what about Boy Kills World, you ask? Well, this new dystopian sci-fi action film starring Pennywise himself, Bill Skarsgård. Well, before jumping into the review itself, let me provide you with a synopsis. Set in a dystopian city ruled by a corrupt criminal family, a deaf and mute man known simply as Boy is trained by a mysterious shaman for many years so he can brutally avenge his family, who was murdered during a horrific televised event known simply as The Culling. Now, I'll tell you right at the top, if you love satirical sci-fi, or I guess the progenitor and probable biggest inspiration for the Wick series, like the Raid films, the Raid duology, you're probably going to end up appreciating a lot of what this movie is doing. It does just enough to acclimate you to this crazy, violent society and their customs and also their culture. Provides you with villains who are the very definition of scum suckers. These are scum-sucking villains. And it lets loose a wild-eyed, he's got some big old peepers, chat, a wild-eyed Bill Skarsgård to shoot, maim, stab, strangle, disembowel, and blow up anyone that they think can take him on. This movie, Boy Meets World,
When this boy meets world, boy meets world.
I knew I'd say it at some point in this review. Listen, I grew up on that show. The Boy Meets World is seminal television, chat. It is quintessential 90s, 2000s television. It was a huge part of my childhood, just watching the life and times, watching the adventures and shenanigans of Corey, of Sean, of Eric, of course, Eric Matthews, chat, Mr. Feeney.
Mr. Feeney? Mr. Feeney!
That was some amazing TV, and like watching this movie, I kept thinking about Boy Meets World. I couldn't help it because the title just reminds me of that movie. That would have been an amazing sequel series. Chat, from Boy Meets World, now Boy Kills World. Holy shit.
When this boy meets world, wandering down this road that we call life is what we're doing.
It's just set in a dystopian sci-fi apocalyptic environment with Corey and Topanga as his warrior woman, and Sean, his best friend, and Eric, who's just a nut. Mr. Squirrels. Can you imagine, chat? Mr. Squirrels in the wasteland?
Feeney! Oh, I can't
do it anymore.
I would love it. And of course, their wise sage leader, Chet, the one they go to advice for, Mr. Feeney. Feeney, that's what we all need right now. Oh my Lord, take a shot, take a shot. It probably won't be the last time I'll mess up the title and call it Boy Meets World. But Boys Kill, excuse me, I'm scared. Now I'm worried I'm going to be messing up the thing. But Boy Kills World provides you with a lot to enjoy, despite, some overly familiar elements that I'll touch on in just a bit. Bill Skarsgård, one of the 17 children of Stellan Skarsgård, who along with his wife is one of the most fertile people on the planet. He gave us good old Bill Skarsgård, and he's an actor I like. And I appreciate him stretching himself via his various performances over these last few years. You can't pigeonhole him at this point. And that's exciting to me. He can play an unassuming but somewhat odd man in a film like Barbarian, or a child-eating sewer clown. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. Plus, he has a particular look. He's got a particular look, with him. He's got those big old eyes, those big old peepers. I imagine, when Stellan Skarsgård and his wife, had him, when she gave birth to him, maybe, whatever, tube, whatever back to tank he crawled out of. I imagine they probably, looked at him and went, this one kind of came out a little funny. He's not quite Alexander Skarsgård, but he's kind of halfway there. He's got them big old googly eyes, kind of got them gangly features and things. And I was like, yeah, this one, we should have kept this one in the back to tank a little while longer. But hey, his features, his assets, his giant, enormous clown sewer eyes, they're gonna work out for him, and they did. They've aided him in many roles, and I feel so bad for making fun of this man. But he's got an odd look, but it's useful to him. It's been useful for him, and you believe him as this wild, expertly trained warrior. He looks good in the action, and he has to, again, solely rely on his body language and eyes to sell his performance. And those big old peepas do a lot of heavy lifting for him in this movie. Now, he does technically have a voice, but it's not his own voice. What it is he has his own internal monologue that we hear throughout the movie. And that internal voice, that monologue, is H. John Benjamin, an accomplished voice actor and comedian. That was, in my opinion, just an incredible, inspired bit of casting right there. I would love it if I was a badass action hero with the voice of Bob Belcher or Sterling Archer.
Rampage! Little help?
And they use that voice throughout the entire movie. And it works for a number of comedic scenes, a number of great gags, just him thinking about certain things, how people perceive him, but also when he's just doing all of this crazy stuff, and even some wholesome moments too. They even do some wholesome moments of H. John Benjamin's voice, and I think H. John Benjamin does just a good a job in his role as the voice as Bill Skarsgård does as Boy. Now, you do have a number of other supporting characters in the movie. You have, I'm probably going to mispronounce this name, but you have Yan Yan Rohian, who plays the shaman, Boy's mentor throughout the entire film. You may not recognize the name, you may not have heard the name before, but you've seen this guy before. If you've watched and this is why I think a lot of this movie is based off the Raids, it's taking a lot of inspiration from the Raid movies. He plays one of the main characters in the Raid films, the first and the second. And he's very good in the movie. I mean, amazing. Simply an amazing mixed martial artist, and he has some great, of course, wonderful training montages and things with Boy, with Bill Skarsgård, but he gets some action scenes for himself too, and they are great. They are grisly, they are gory, and they are very, very bloody. And then you have the rest of the cast. And we get some allies who are kind of there for a little bit, for a hot minute, and then they're usually they leave the film. That's all I'll say. But you also have Famke Johnson in this movie. You have Sharlto Copley. You have Brett Gelman, who you might remember. He plays Murray in the Stranger Things TV show, and he's been in a couple other things too. Jessica Roth, you might have seen before. She plays like an enforcer henchwoman in the film with a secret. And then you might not recognize this name, Michelle Dockery. She plays Mary in Downton Abbey, in a very different type of role for her, which I think is really cool. Now, again, most of these characters are just plain villains. They do a decent, good job of what they're given. They do get some fun moments, some good moments, and but they're just despicably evil. That's what they're there to be, despicably evil, really cruel, over the top, occasionally chewing scenery, and most of the time, they die in horrifically gruesome ways. They are corruption and excess incarnate, and their personalities reflect all of that. And for what they're given, it's fun. It's fun watching them be just obnoxious human beings, and the majority of them get their due comeuppance in horrific, graphic, bloody fashion. And that's the thing. I would say a lot of the action, a good amount of the action in this movie is great. The choreography for it is exceptional. It's some of the best action choreography I feel like I've seen this year. A lot of people would probably go to Monkey Man, but I'll bring up Monkey Man in just a bit because I am going to compare this movie to Monkey Man since they're just borrowing from the same sources, whether it be The Raid or John Wick. But I like the action in this movie a lot more. It has more of a sense of humor too. And it incorporates that into its action choreography as well. And so even though you might have some, you can have some like relatively grounded fights, and then you can have just some fights that are ridiculous and just over the top and just exploding with buckets of gore and blood. Like that's what this movie provides. But a lot of it is done well, I think, for the most part. And it's a fun time. It's a really fun time. Now, Boy Meets World,
shame on you.
Yes, Boy Kills World, goddammit. Boy Kills World does have a few issues. I have a few issues because I keep messing up the title. Take a drink. Listen, although they didn't ruin the entirety of the experience for me, we have seen some familiar things. They are borrowing a lot. We've seen the sci-fi dystopian society on the brink of collapse, and the powers that be, they give the people what they want. Bread and circuses, pure entertainment. That's what they're to provide. A lot of people will definitely compare the movie and the Van Der Koys, the villains, and their culling to the Hunger Games, or Battle Royale. But there's also a lot of the Running Man in this movie.
Here is Sub-Zero. Now, Plane Zero.
Just in terms of tone, humor, and satirical presentation of capitalism and television. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just overly familiar, right? And, going back to the humor for a second, not every joke or gag, at least for me, landed. But again, humor is subjective. So what I may not have liked, you may like, and vice versa. But my biggest criticism of this film is the use of shaky cam in the movie. It's not used all the time or for, every single action sequence or fight scene. But when it's used, it's noticeable. And it takes away from the scenes themselves because I'm like, I can tell this is well choreographed based on what I saw earlier in the movie. And so why they're doing that, I don't get it. While not used as much as Dev Patel's Monkey Man, which used it all throughout the first half of that film, another John Wick raid-inspired movie, I was just confused as to why it was being used at all, since so much of the choreography and cinematography is great, is really good in the film. This film has a poppy and vibrant color palette. It has an effective use of slow motion. Someone should show Zack Snyder this film and say, this is when you should use slow motion. This is how you should use it, not just people fucking fighting over an open goddamn field of grain, just shooting laser guns and going, and crying, all right? They use the slow motion here actually in a really fun, interesting way that is cool to see. It earns it, goddammit. And the camera often has these just steady medium and wide shots. So they just let all these big action and fight scenes just play out. It's like, this is really cool to see. So I ask, like, why suddenly just start filming some of these scenes of shaky cam? It's a choice, and it's just not necessary. I just don't get it. You know, I talked about this before. I talked about this, excuse me. I talked about this during my Monkey Man review. You know, I thought we just moved past shaky cam action like 15 years ago because just we as a society have decided it's bad. But you have a number of filmmakers seemingly actively trying to bring it back. And I'm just like, why? You know, it takes away from so much of the obvious effort that's being put in these sequences, and they're good. You know, I don't want to go back to the days of the Bourne Identity when you can barely see anything going on. But you know, the movie thankfully doesn't do it all the time. It just inexplicably does it sometimes when it's just not even necessary. And the only thing I can think of is maybe like, well, we're doing it this way. We're using slow motion. We have these wide shots. We have these more medium shots. You know, it's like, let's put a little shaky cam in there. Maybe spice it up a little bit. But I don't need that spice. You're putting too much goddamn paprika in there. I don't get the shaky cam paprika out of the goddamn food. I don't need that. So that was annoying. However, again, it's not used all the time. But if you want to see a film where Bill Skarsgård is just going hog wild, if you just want to have Archer narrate everything that you do throughout your life, which sounds pretty cool, at least for, 90 minutes, and you just want to see some amazingly choreographed action with blood and guts and people getting shot to death and stabbed to death and disemboweled, then I think you're going to like a lot of what Boy Kills World. Almost said it again. I think you're gonna like a lot of what Boy Kills World does. You know, I usually don't want to compare this to something so similar to it, but for me, I think this is even better than Monkey Man. Not to say that I hated Monkey Man. I actually liked the movie, but I felt like that first half really struggled, but that second half was better. This one's more consistent throughout its entire running time, and it also has a few twists and turns as well. You know, it plays around with some things too, which I thought was cool. It was unexpected. I was like, oh, that's what's going on. So I liked it for that. But yeah, I ended up really enjoying this action film. Sadly, apparently no one's seen it right now. I saw this with my friend last night, and there was like only another couple. There was a couple in the theater with us, and no one else. So I was like, this was like I know it was a Monday, but it's still like an evening screening. So I was like, oh no. So I don't know how this movie's doing, but I don't know. I think it might be worth checking out. If not in the theater, then definitely on streaming or on VOD. I think there's just a lot to like about it. But what about you guys? Have you guys heard about this movie, Boy Kills World? Have you seen it? Did you like it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on the movie? Did you not like it? This movie seems to be dividing a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that are just not liking this film, but a lot of people are. So maybe it's a bit of a divisive movie. But as always, let me know.
5 minutes later.
What about you, chap? What have you heard? What have you, if you have seen it, what do you think of Boy Kills World? What about Boy Meets World? I think it would have been funny to get like Mr. Squirrels, Will Friedle. There's actually a character. I'm like, you could be Mr. Squirrels. Oh, Lord. Let's see. Like an ironed out Steve Buscemi. Yeah. Out of the womb, just like a lizard. Stellan's like, that one's a little weird. That one's a weird one. I'm sure the next one will look fine, though. Oh, Lord. Hey, Bill's made it work for him. So does he have leading man materials? Yeah, he could do it. No, he could do it. He's kind of like the alternative leading man because he has a bit of a... He's kind of like... I don't want to be mean, but he has a bit of a... He's like kind of sexy ugly in this. Is that a mean thing to say? He's like sexy ugly. I think, he looks great. Like he has his shirt off a lot. He has amazing physique. His body looks really good. He's kind of still gangly, but he looks really good. And then you get up to his face and it's like intense. But I think a lot of women, a lot of men probably find him super attractive, But, he's intense. He has a very intense look. Those eyes, man. Woo! Just joking. Skarsgård only has 8. Nah, yes, he has another 9 you don't know about. Keep it with the compound. Cold Force 99 member. Oh, no. Ironed out Steve Buscemi. Honey, why is this baby... Honey, why is the baby well died?
Fine. Fine. Ow. Hey, what? What? Hey. Ow.
Dude, let's go.